Boom. Just like that. GND 11. We're back, swinging away, and now we got a good pal. Some call him, he's like a Billy Gates Jr. kind of thing, like just a giant brain and a gorgeous body. We got Chad Hayden with the CEO of Galatea Technologies.
Tucker, I'll give you $20 after this for that introduction. I appreciate it. Wow.
Well, you earned it. I mean, look at you. Just a picture of health over there.
Hey, what can I say?
Well, you look comfy. It's good. Got to be comfy.
Well, thanks for having me. This is an awesome spot, and I'm excited to have a great conversation.
Well, we're gonna. That's the plan. And you know what? I feel good today. I feel kind of like a rock star because, I don't know, have you ever been on the Jumbotron in a Flames game?
Tucker, tell me more. You've been on the Jumbotron?
Last night.
Come on. Tarps
Second
on,
time.
tarps off? Tarps on?
Tarp was on, yeah, but I saw her coming. They were doing like that trivia thing, and I never, you always laugh at people on the.
Yeah.
They're getting. I saw her walking around with a microphone, and this giant stash. It's just a target, right? Yeah. So I saw her coming, and I was looking at the guys I was with, but I wasn't listening to what the questions were.
Yeah.
Sure enough, turned around, boom, right in my face. Lovely mustache, sir.
Oh, here we go.
It was like, okay, and then my phone just started blowing up, but I won.
The social media is just had to beat him away.
Well, I felt famous, but it's better than the first time. The first time I was on the Jumbotron, I was crushing a chili cheese hot dog, and I was like 250-pound fat whale.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's only up from here. I can't wait to see your next Jumbotron appearance.
Yeah, just got to keep going. Got to put yourself out there. Marketing.
I love it.
Anyway, great to have you, pal. You're creating a lot of buzz in the energy sector, and we'll dive into all the fun stuff. But I guess you'd be a long time patch guy now for such a young guy too. Like, how old are you now?
36, maybe.
36?
Could be 37.
Yeah,
hard to run that math, but Tucker, I've been doing this since I was 17 years old.
Yeah, incredible. That's awesome.
I love it.
Well, so did you grow up here? Or where did you grow up?
I got the typical oil patch story. Born in Calgary, raised in Medicine Hat. My dad was a plant operator at Methanex down there making methanol. He got transferred up to Fort Mac. We moved to Sherwood Park, Alberta, where I went to high school.
Yeah.
And 17 years old, graduated high school. And I've got a couple uncles in oil and gas. And one of them, in their infinite wisdom, thought it'd be a good idea for me to go work on a rig. Yeah, that sounds great.
You're like, sounds easy.
17 years old, I get put on a rig, and I've never been on a rig or anything in my entire life. And I remember driving out by Drumheller and seeing the rig, and I drove around all the roads to try to get in there. I didn't know what a lease road was.
Right. Yeah.
So I just booted across the farmer's field and showed up on the rig.
Well, people wouldn't know. Yeah, they put up the little rig signs like a Keeter or Trailblazer or whoever.
Yeah.
To which way to go, but sometimes they miss them, right?
And if you drive through a farmer's field to get to the rig, that is the best way to meet the company man. So I show up on the rig, and the company man grabs me by the scruff of the hair and goes, "Do not ever do that again." And I said, "Well, how do I get in here?" And he talked me through a lease road and lease signs. So from my first adventure out to the rig, it's been a learning experience since.
Well, it's 17. That's pretty darn young to be heading out to the rig. Didn't you even know what you were getting into?
No idea. I was told the typical from my uncles, don't put your finger where you wouldn't put your pecker. Sort of the lay of the land.
Just simple but true, yeah.
And then it was a learning experience. We drilled a couple wells around Drumheller for Conoco back in the day, and then we moved the rig to Northeast BC.
Oh, wow.
And that was a whole experience.
It's a whole different world, right?
Yeah. I went out there on my first hitch. We fly in, fly out. Yeah. You can't get access to it in the wintertime. And I remember waiting for the plane coming in. I count the crew coming off the plane. The push comes to me, and he goes, "Chad, we're one short. You're staying." So 5 weeks up north.
Sweet.
Working a couple hitches. I went out there a little kid, 17-year-old kid, And in a couple of hitches came back an adult.
Came back a man.
I
Yeah.
had to, right?
Yeah, he's thrown right into the fire.
I remember, I'll tell you my story about smoking a cigarette for the first time.
Yeah.
I noticed that everyone working the rig, if you smoked, you got to go to the flare stack and had a cigarette. And I was like, well, I'm pounding up a flare line. I want to do that too.
Yeah.
So the company man comes over and he goes, hey, I'm going into town. Do you want a pack of smokes? And I said, yeah, I'd
Sure
love a
do.
pack of smokes. And he goes, what kind of smokes do you smoke? And I said, I don't know. What do you smoke? And he goes, no, like Demore. I don't.
You didn't even know.
I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a single clue. So he kind of laughs, walks away, comes back, throws me a pack of smokes, and he goes, let's go smoke one of these things. Okay. So I walk out to the flare stack. I couldn't figure out which end of the cigarette to light because they both look the same because I got unfiltered smokes right down to the woods. So I smoked my first cigarette, just about puked in front of the company man.
Held it in though, hey? Got to show your top.
Oh, yeah, I held it in.
And cool.
Yeah, and it worked.
Oh, that's deadly.
Yeah, it was working on the rigs is a good way to learn about hard work and accountability and expectations. I came back to my uncles eventually and said, okay, I don't want to do this my whole life. And they said, perfect. The plan worked. I went to SAIT, took petroleum engineering technology, and then spent more time in the field traveling across Western Canada. I spent 2 years in Denver, 4 years in Texas, working across all the major basins. I got to see a lot and learn a lot.
Oh man. Yeah. That's, you picking up all kinds of different experiences there, especially in the, different formations, different zones and drilling at different depths and faster moving rigs, slower moving rigs. But I was gonna go back to what was that first rig you worked on? So was that a Trailblazer or
Trailblazer? So 26.
Yeah, 2006. So that's when gas was just hot and heavy.
Yeah, and we were drilling 2 wells a day. I was packing that flare line, banging it together, pulling it apart.
Yeah, and so your first position. Well, in those rigs, those were fast movers, right? You were banging those wells out. Yeah, like you said, two a day, and rigging up and moving out is rigging out. It's tough work.
It's tough work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very hard work. Yeah. But those guys earn their money. I mean, I was just checking the rates the other day, and I mean, like if anybody out there is looking for gigs, I mean, yeah, it's tough work, but I mean, a lease hand rate right now is like $39.50. Entry level, and that's just not saying it's not hard. It's extremely hard, but that's scrubbing and doing all the grunt work and learning and observing and the slips, trips, and falls and observing hazards and all that stuff. But it's incredible. Like the first time that I heard about drilling, I was actually at university, and I had heard one of the guys left school. I was still at school. He was gone, and he worked the rigs for a year or something, and like he paid his student loan off. And that's when I was like, what? How is that possible? Now, the pay is extremely high, but the work is extremely hard, right? It's tough work. So it's not for the faint of heart, but I would encourage people to give it a go if you're looking, especially in these times right now, right? Like it's pretty tough out there.
It builds character.
Builds character,
and
for sure.
People that are successful aren't afraid of hard work. To learn how to get tenacity and perseverance is such a foundational skill. I'm so lucky I learned it when I was young. Yeah. Persevered through some of that adversity. Tucker, every day I wanted to quit. But eventually it got to the point where this is what I signed up for. Yeah. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about teamwork and camaraderie. On the rig, part of your job is to protect everybody you work with from all of the dangers and things that happen on a rig. Some of those relationships were foundational to me. You come across a multitude of people out in the rigs, learning how to align yourself, learning how to bond with people, learning how to build those relationships with some of the crustiest people you'll ever meet. It's been a skill that's had tremendous value on me through my career.
Oh, no question. I don't. So how many years did you end up working, I guess, in total on the rigs?
I probably worked 10 years in the field between roughnecking, and then I worked for a drilling fluids company, so I ran mud. Yeah. Almost in every basin. I worked offshore for 2 years, learned a lot. The way that we run mud in Canada is very different than the way they run mud in the States, which is very different.
When I stop you there, how so? And what is running mud, just for for English for the layman.
So
who's running
when
mud.
you drill a well, you need to fill that well with a fluid to prevent a blowout.
Yep.
When you think about it, there's a bunch of hydrostatic pressure down deep in the formation. Then you're drilling into these reservoirs that have high reservoir pressure. So you need to have some sort of fluid in that wellbore to prevent a blowout. You also need to circulate out cuttings. There's a bunch of chemical properties that need to be aligned and adjusted as you drill. Think of it like hot tub chemicals.
Yep.
You need to be constantly managing different aspects like density and viscosity and all of the other attributes that make drilling successful. So that's really what it was about. Canada and the US, we run different types of mud systems. When I worked in South Texas, we drilled with purple diesel. So literally purple diesel, the way that your chemicals react with purple diesel is very different than it reacted in Canada. Offshore, you've got a whole different magnitude of pressures, different types of mud systems. You've got some environmental liability offshore. So just the chemical components and what we did and what we ran, very different across multiple basins.
Yeah, no question. How was that offshore experience? That's something I never got to get close to even. I think it'd be phenomenal. Maybe not.
Yeah, it's, you're offshore. You can't see anything except for a couple of other rigs on the horizon. You're out there by yourself. Back when I worked the rigs, we didn't really have connectivity. There was no Starlink satellite. So you're in solitude. Working north in Canada, you work in camps typically.
Yep.
You share a meal with everybody. You go to the gym, you go to sleep, you go back to work. Offshore, we worked the whole time because there was nothing else to do besides smoking cigarettes.
Maybe dropping a line off the edge of the platform and trying to pull up a big wicked tuna.
Yeah, and once you go offshore, you realize that some of the human waste goes off the rig, and that's where the fish, and then they catch the fish and they eat it. So I didn't
cycle of life
have a foray into the fish offshore, but it was an experience for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty wild. Okay, so you spent a good 10 years in the field, and then you went to school after that. You went to
spent 2 years in school or in the field, and then I went to SAIT, took petroleum engineering technology, and then I went and ran mud. So I spent a couple years in Canada, went to Denver for 2 years, Houston for 4 years.
Okay, awesome. And I wonder how that petroleum engineering course, I wonder how the, what the numbers are like now for people enrolling. Are they even encouraging it still? Are a lot of guys still taking that course? It makes me wonder.
I had the opportunity to speak at the University of Calgary the other day, and the University of Calgary doesn't have a petroleum engineering degree anymore because there's not enough uptake. Not a lot of young people want to take petroleum engineering anymore, which is super scary. Macro level, when we look at the energy industry, I work for a tech company now, and our demand that we put in our data centers is wild, and it's growing exponential. When you think about what ChatGPT and all of this artificial intelligence, when you look at living a life in virtual augmented reality, energy demand as consumers on a macro level is only going to increase exponentially. We're going to have some tough conversations as a society about energy security and weighing, these environmental impacts versus being able to live life with artificial intelligence. What are the trade-offs and what are the sacrifices we're going to have to make? Not having a petroleum engineering degree really scares me because this is the time where I think more young people need to be running towards energy companies or the energy industry and starting to solve problems, trying to help.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I think we talk about it out here in the West being, energy rich, but we understand that it's going to take our sector, which with the current practices in place already, it'll be our industry that gets us to the next level of sustainable energy and working in the renewable sector and all that new innovation and technology. It's going to come from the minds that are already in the energy sector, not from big wheels with pink socks driving formulas down our throats so that they don't understand themselves. It's going to take us working together collaboratively for sure.
We need a lot of power and a lot of energy. When you think about how much energy goes into producing concrete or steel, all the infrastructure that's going to be needed to go through this transition, that energy has to come from somewhere, and energy reliability is very important. Out west here, we live in such abundance. You turn on the lights and they always turn on. You turn your tap and clean water always comes out. We don't have that adversity like other jurisdictions or countries in the world have to go through.
Yeah.
How much different of a life would it be if you had to go pick up cow shit to cook with, to cook dinner every day? And a large part of the globe still does that. It's crazy to me. We are afforded such luxuries due to our energy abundance and security. The rest of the world should be entitled that too, and it should be our obligation as Canadians to provide that clean energy, cleaner burning energy to the world, to bring everybody up into the luxuries that we get to live in every day. We're so lucky to be Canadians and to live where we do and do what we do.
So with you, we are incredibly lucky, no question. Well, okay, so you had your run there, and you took your petroleum, and then you ran in the field for a while, and then at what point did you, like, your current company Galatea? We're going to talk about that obviously, but you mentioned something to me that struck me in how old I was before. Well, you said, you started writing code. When did you start writing code, and where did you learn to write code?
Well, I always kind of have. When we had a computer when I was younger, we always just would play with the software and see what it does, that sort of feedback loop. Change this, read the code. Okay, I think this does this, change it, see what happens, that iterative loop. I've always built things. I lived on an acreage growing up. We were always tinkering with building.
Yeah.
And building software is much like that, except instead of using a hammer and nails, you're using lines of code to get different reactions in software. And I think you have to earn the right to solve a problem. And working in the field was really formative to me, where I was the person experiencing the pain.
Right.
Think about running mud. We're dealing with millions of dollars of inventory on lease, and we used to manage it in a spreadsheet, and there'd be no transparency back to the business.
No.
The calculations about mud products that we were running were in Excel. They were often manipulated. So I just looked at problems like that and said, there's got to be a better way. When I worked for the mud company, we advanced their technology stack just because I was one of the few people out in the field that is working the field, can software, and has lived the pain and understands sort of the magnitude of the impact to the business. I have this insatiable drive for optimization. I look at systems and it drives me crazy when they're not efficient. And all of this sort of chaos that happens out in the field. And anytime I find a problem like that, I make it my mission to try to solve it. And I've really been doing it my whole life. Software is just a tool in the tool case that I use to go out and solve these problems.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So that comes from, your field experience brought you to, your current day, and with your technological experience, you were able to combine the two to solve problems, really to lead us to a more sustainable future as well, right? So when did you get the first idea for this particular company, and what does Galatea do specifically?
Yeah, great question. So moved back to Canada, had way too much fun in the U.S., threw me out of there, and I came back to Canada and ended up working at an environmental service company called New Alta. And New Alta was a business that managed waste from a bunch of industries, oil and gas, industrial chemicals, mining, and I got exposed to sort of this network of producer sites that produce water, flow back, drill cuttings. They'd come to our receiving sites on trucks. We'd process it and then figure out what to do with the waste. We put the oil in a pipeline. We'd take the solids to a landfill. And that was really the core business to New Alta. Now, the other critical aspect in life to be successful, to be an entrepreneur, is you got to learn how to sell. And my whole goal was to come back and get that experience in business development and sales, learn how to tell good stories, learn how to create conviction, learn how to identify value, translate that to the people that are buying, and create some sort of transaction. So New Alta was a great opportunity for me to sell a bunch of different things. Came first to Nualta, started selling centrifuges on the back of drilling rigs. That's where I grew up. I understood it really well. I had ran centrifuges in the field. It was a lot of fun. At some point, I sold Nualta out of centrifuges and wandered around the hall saying, what else can I sell?
Yeah, totally. Hey, okay, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there. We'll stop there. You on the top, the big dog. What? No, centrifuge. Let's explain a centrifuge for people, because I find, I just have to stop sometimes, because most people know in our sector, but outside they wouldn't know what a centrifuge is. And so how would you describe a centrifuge?
So a lot of the substances that came into our facilities were a mixture of liquids and solids. And a centrifuge is a process that uses centrifugal force to separate solids and liquids, because it's way easier for us to process them separately than it is to process a sludge. So we would take these centrifuges on the back of a drilling rig. When you drill these wells, you get a bunch of cuttings that come out of the well with your drilling fluid. You don't want to pump those cuttings down into your well, so you need a way to process that. In Canada, first primary is your shakers, so that's this big machine that vibrates with a bunch of screens, knocks out a large part of your solids, but you still have these little fine solids that end up in your drilling fluids. Centrifuge spins really, really fast, uses gravity, a scroll in a bowl to separate the liquids and the solids.
Yep. Perfect. Yeah.
Did I nail it?
Nailed it.
Yes.
101.
Still got it.
Print that clip. We'll blast it around. Tag it. Hashtag Chad Hayden.
Hashtag centrifuges.
Centrifuges. Yeah. Okay. So you were pumping those things out, and you put them all to work, and you learned how to sell at Nualta, and then where'd you go?
So I stayed at Nualta, and I went into their environmental services division, where I actually got to sell for these facilities. And that transaction on the facilities, we obviously have costs to treat different types of waste, but the other component of that, 75% of that cost was actually trucking. And that fascinated me, because there was a network of producer sites. There were all these trucks that came and picked it up. They came to our facilities and dropped them off. And the thing that I realized, my sort of epiphany that started the thesis of what I do, was that the people making the decisions on where to go were the truck drivers.
Right.
And I looked at the reviews of all of our facilities, and it was like, hey, this facility's got really good pizza pops. This facility's got hot dogs. This facility has all of these things to entice transporters to come to the facilities, when I thought it should be pricing.
Yeah, sure. They're not bidding it out. They're just going to where they can get a good snack.
Yeah, it's transactional, and the decision maker was actually the truck driver. Well, how inefficient is that system? And that's really where I wandered down this, trying to quantify, well, are the best decisions being made? Is there money to save? Because in order for you to sell something, you have to reciprocate value in order for somebody to pay you. So at Nualta, I saw this crazy complex network of facilities, receiving facilities, producing, and transporters in the mix. And I went, hey, there's probably something here.
Yeah.
But like I said earlier, the way that I get to understand problems is to live it.
Yeah.
So imagine this. We bought a brand new house. We've got a baby on the way, and I'm trying to convince my wife to let me go work for a trucking company.
Just going to switch it up, hon. You know what I mean? I'm just going to drive a truck. Are you okay?
Yeah, totally. So I went to work for a couple years at a trucking company, because in order to solve a problem, you have to live it. And I really wanted to feel the pain that trucking companies go through every day. Now, oil and gas commodity businesses, you've got some pretty big and sophisticated players. We've got the Mullen Transportation Group. We've got Trimac. Those companies have big systems and processes in place. They make a lot of money, and they've been around for generations. But you also have probably 80% of the industry is these small mom and pops. And I ended up at a small mom and pop in Grand Prairie, trying to figure out how do they manage all these trucks. And it was back to the drilling fluid days, where they managed this all in spreadsheets.
I was going to say, and were they writing it all out in like paper tickets?
Yeah,
and
paper tickets. So
just archaic.
This afforded me the luxury to actually sit in the dispatch room, smoke cigarettes with the dispatcher,
Standard.
drive around with the truck drivers, figure out what's happening. And my realization was the pain for the trucking company. The day that we did the work to the day that we got paid was sometimes 120 days.
Right.
Which is really hard to run a business. When you have these cycles of oil and gas activity going from 100 to 0, sometimes in months, you're paying people, you're paying fuel, all of these costs and expense. the more visibility you have into the business, the easier it is to operate. And a lot of these mom and pops don't have very good visibility. So at this trucking company, it really allowed me to formulate, hey, there's value to be solved for the transporters too, sort of in this network.
So and when you went over to the company, were you driving the trucks at all, or were you just strictly like working in dispatch and then helping with their systems?
Well, I actually went over there in sales.
In sales, right?
So I went over there in sales, and as I got closer to the business, they gave me the opportunity to help them bring in better systems. So we wrote some software there to help them better manage revenue. So let's close the DSO, days sales outstanding, the days that you do the work to when you get paid. Let's shorten that up.
Yeah.
And then also let's get a better handle of R&M per asset, repair and maintenance on these trucks. Let's get a better idea of fuel cost, driver performance, all of these metrics that makes it easier for them to run their business. Software, digitalizing these truck tickets, digitalizing their process really gave us the opportunity to make better decisions based on data.
Right.
And that was really formative to understand that, hey, it's hard to run a trucking business regardless of whatever you use. Hiring people, getting them to your base, putting them in trucks, making sure the trucks run, getting them out to site to do their job, safety, all of that's really tough business. It's exponentially harder when you manage it with spreadsheets.
No question. So I guess then would that lead you to, so you had the idea, you served your time in the trench there. Now you've got your idea, you help them improve their systems and procedures. Now the light bulb is fully flickering.
Yeah.
But then did you put it together right away, or did you chase or maybe take another bridge job and chase your dream then right after, or did it already come together?
You go through this process of trying to find conviction.
Yeah.
And conviction to me means, are you providing enough value that somebody will give you money? And then when you think about the money that they're going to give you, can you do it for a lower cost that at the end of the day you can make value to yourself or shareholders, whoever's a part of the business? And so this allowed me the opportunity to really noodle and think and mull and stay up late at night pondering, is that value exchange there?
Yeah.
And I earned the conviction to say, yeah, this is a really big problem. Producers in Western Canada spend about $4 billion a year on trucking and disposal. Macro market North America, it's $40 billion. That's a large line on the lease ops. Yeah. And then I'd go to all my buddies who were production engineers or D&C engineers. We'd go through lease ops. So that's a statement operating an asset that just shows you where all your expenses are.
Yeah.
And I'd sit down with them and I'd say, okay, tell me about all of these things on the lease op, and are you optimizing them? And they'd go through it and they'd say, chemicals, yep. Power, people, yep. We get down to trucking and disposal, and they'd say, I don't even know how we would, because it's so transactional, it's so fragmented. We just let the people in the field manage
It's just still run like the Wild West, like the rest of the services.
Yeah.
That used to be, essentially, right? All from the field level.
And rightly so. When you've got a flowback operation and you've got 100 loads leaving a day, there's not enough time in the day or attention to call these facilities and say, can you take it? What's your price? What's trucking? This convoluted network of variables that change all the time, the smartest person in the world couldn't even do it.
Right.
Great application for software. So in 2019, had to have another hard conversation with my wife to say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I think there's value here, and I think we can start a business. And she's incredibly supportive. My family are all entrepreneurs. Her family are all entrepreneurs. Yeah. It was a very easy conversation for me to have to say, yeah, we got to do it. Yeah. I find a lot of people come up with a great idea, but the real skill, the real art is in execution.
You have to actually take the full swing, not just a little bunt. You have to dive right in, and
got to go all in.
And did you have at the time when you said you talked to your wife? How many? Did you have one child at the time, or how many? Oh, you would have had two at the time.
Two
right?
By then.
Yeah. Because you've got 3 children, right?
We have 3 children. You betcha.
Yeah, and how old are the kids now?
Marlo's 8, Wilder's 6, and Radley's 2.
Okay.
So
good little mixed bag of hellions.
Yeah, we're so lucky. It keeps us on our toes. We always have lots to do, but we get through it, and we have a lot of fun doing it.
For sure.
Some days I look back on working on the rigs and saying, life was pretty easy back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, that entrepreneurial journey. Same thing with us when I started the GND thing. And for some people who don't know, the original iteration of the GND was actually Great Northern Drilling, right? I built a drilling rig. I had the idea at an old company that I worked at, an old drilling company, and then we were running these geotechnical drilling rigs on some smaller applications and kind of soil sampling before you'd HDD, like under a river crossing or phase 2 environmental type drilling. And anyway, I remember talking to my wife as well, Dana, at the time, and we had a child on the way, my daughter now, but now's the time. I was laid off, and so do you take a swing or not? And so I just went all in and took after it. Now I ended up taking a beating on it.
Yeah,
but okay. I didn't. I had to go through. I learned a ton. Raised the money. Got no. Did the Dragon's Den pitching to all different guys to try to raise money. And here's my idea. And I learned so much through that process. And it's unfortunate it didn't work out, but that's okay. We ended up selling the rig, and you learn so much about yourself, and you test your moxie, and you have no money coming in, and it's scary. So, but by getting to that point in my story brings me back to yours, because in 2019, I mean, things were just about to get very shitty around the world.
Real bad.
Right.
So we closed a friends and family financing. So the first thing you do when you start a business is try to figure out how do you pay for this. And I went around to all my friends and family and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Take a bet on me. Let's hope it works out. We closed our financing the week that COVID launched into the world. Yeah. And then not long after that, oil prices went negative.
Yeah, they went negative. Jesus Christ. Cool.
Do you give the money back? Do you give the money back, or do you press forward? When we looked at the macro trend, I couldn't imagine a world where people weren't flying in planes, weren't driving cars, weren't living the life that we have learned to live again. And I said, somebody's got to do it. Nobody else is coming to the table with a solution like this. I had that unwavering conviction, and we pressed on.
You believed in it. Yeah. And you have to be all in, like you said.
You have to be all in.
Yeah. And so, you mentioned you raised money. So is that all crowdfunding or kind of a combination? I'm not asking where you got your money. But I mean, take down a couple numbers. No, I guess it was a combination of kind of crowdfunding and you raised some capital. And I guess that gets me back to the point of what is your company like? So you started, it's the software-driven company is what you're implementing.
You want the Galatea pitch now.
Optimizing, yeah, I mean, I guess we have to go there. That's the company. We're going to get there eventually.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So my whole thesis at Galatea was the way that wastewater clean oil leaves a producer's site and goes to a receiving facility, that whole workflow is antiquated and paper-based.
Yeah.
When we think about what we do at Galatea, it's a 3-step process. First step, let's digitalize the truck tickets. Let's digitalize the waste manifest, the shipping documents, the TDG forms that are required for transportation. That tells me where the waste was generated, what trucking company came out from what base to pick it up, what was the characteristics of what they picked up, where did they take it to, and where did that truck go after. That's really digitalization, and that gives us this data set that we obsess over data quality. And once you have this beautiful data set, that unlocks the opportunity to optimize your assets.
Okay.
So the second part of our business we call optimization, and that's really helping and enabling that field person, whether it's a field operator or a truck driver, make better decisions. And that comes down to when they show up at a riser and they put produced water on their truck, who has capacity? What do the wait times look like? What's the trucking plus disposal cost? What's the environmental impact? Presenting that to the person in the field and allowing them to make the decision on where to go enables them to start driving down and optimizing that lease op line, that OpEx line. We call that optimization. The next step in the process is automation, where we build the trust to take over that whole process and manage it on behalf of the producer. When I worked in the field, there was so much stuff that we had to do. Our limiting factor, our choke point was hours in a day.
Right.
And I can't imagine being out there right now with all of the fuel flare vent and emissions data that needs to be captured and quantified. All the operators that I talked to today spend more time doing paperwork than they actually do increasing productivity on their wells. So we've tried to create a system that makes it really easy to take that workflow from riser to getting that ticket paid.
Take it out of their hands and do it for them. Optimize it for them.
Get back to operating.
Get back to what they're paid to do. Yep.
Get back to what you're paid to do. Thankfully, the process is pretty inefficient, and we're saving some clients upwards of 30% on that lease op line. And on a $40 billion market, that's a lot of money. There's
a lot of dough.
An opportunity for us to monetize that into the business. And that's really what we do today at Galatea. We work for 50% of the producers in Canada. We just signed our first big U.S. producer.
I saw that. Congrats.
Back to Texas.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
We work for almost 700 trucking companies and a couple hundred receivers. So getting everybody onto the platform, getting a system that's easy to use has taken a lot of work. We've made an insane amount of mistakes, but we really serve the truck driver and we really serve the field operator. If we can make their life easy, the rest of the system flows. And we are hyper focused on making that process to deliver our service in the field so incredibly easy.
It's a pretty good pitch.
Thank you.
We'll clip that part out and we'll punch it around town as well. No, that's phenomenal. But it makes me think of really focusing in on that your first foray out when it went real and you talked to the wife and you got your money raised, whatever you needed to raise to get out there and get running. How was that first? Like, were you working out of your house, and how was the first implementation? Like, how did that go? You don't have to say who it was for, but how did that go? How was that experience?
Yeah, so we built an MVP. MVP to software people means minimum viable product. What is the most basic thing that we think somebody would pay for?
Yeah.
And one of our favorite clients to this day, Entrada Resources, took a chance on us.
Yep.
And one of the secrets to our success is when we implemented the solution for Entrada, we ran it internally. So we act as the operator. We acted as the truck driver. We used our own software. There's this crazy concept called dog fooding, which means when you make dog food, you eat the dog food. Like you use your own product, and that allowed us to be the producer and to operate the software. And when we saw the savings coming out the other side, it was super compelling. And that allowed us to build, when the phone rings at 4 a.m. and you've got a truck on a riser, you realize that that's a problem and you don't want to get up again at 4 a.m. So you develop software and features to make sure that that doesn't happen again. We go through this iterative process at Galatea where everybody in the business goes on a dispatch rotation. We don't have a dispatcher. There'll be days when I pick up the phone and I'm on dispatch, our COO is on dispatch, our product manager is on dispatch, our sales is on dispatch, because then we're the experts at using our own product and we can relate with the people on the other side of the phone that are going through the same pain that we go through.
Yeah.
It's been super beneficial.
That's an incredible marriage of technology and the energy sector coming together. It's amazing. I mean, that's the way the world is going. Anyways, it's fascinating that you found this little niche. Like, we're always looking for what is needed or where can I add value, like you said, and you need to add that conviction piece to it. But it's a really good marriage between the two for which the energy sector craves, right? I mean, it really does.
Totally. We're going through this renaissance period in oil and gas.
Yeah.
Where we're realizing the returns of software and the returns of data and making better decisions. Every client we talk to is hungry for a clean data set so they can use that data to better manage their business. And that's not just operational data, but it's ESG data, environmental, social, governance data. They're using our data to make better decisions. And those better decisions have ripple effects into the industry where we're having less environmental damage. We're not moving sour produced water by schools. We have transparency in the supply chain, which checks the governance box.
Yeah.
Having that data to make those decisions is how we move forward as an industry to become better.
Yeah. Oh, that's well put. And how many people do you have working for you now?
There's about 20 of us right now between software and the business.
Yeah.
Our whole business is all about digitalizing, optimizing, and automating. So what we try to do before we hire people is automate as much of this process as we can. So that allows us to scale into bigger jurisdictions like the US. And it really makes us focus on, hey, what's working in our business? What's not working in our business? What can we automate? The things that used to keep us up at 4 a.m. no longer keep us up at the 4 a.m. But trust me, there's more things that keep us up.
Yeah, there's
right?
the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this iterative loop of working through, digitalize it so you can understand it, optimize it so you have confidence in it, and automate it so you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Mm-hmm. And what type of people, I guess, would you be looking for when you're hiring? Are you looking for that kind of crossbreed hybrid? Maybe they have some field, or you're really looking at it from an IT perspective, software, coding, data entry, data analytics, or all the above? How do you...
When we first started the business, a lot of the people that we would hire would be people that came from oil and gas and had lived the pain and understanding.
Okay. Yeah.
We also tried to hire generalists, people that could do a little bit of everything and come into a small shop and make the software work and get it out the other side. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But as you grow a business, that whole thought process changes. We're now at a stage in our company where we have to hire experts.
Right.
So we need to hire people that can sit on top of our data quality process and obsess over that and be responsible and accountable to just that function of the business and make it excellent.
Need to hire a bunch of rain men.
Yeah.
Just a number of Neos and rain men.
Well, and honestly,
right?
I just about made one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made when I looked for a COO to operate the business.
Right.
I went to my board and some mentors and said, hey, I'm going to try to clone myself. I'm going to try to hire somebody that looks like me, thinks like me, can do what I do. And they said, no, you're an idiot. Stop. Don't do that. That's bad.
Yeah, you need someone who's going to maybe challenge you a bit and who thinks differently and outside of the box.
Well, and the thing I realized, the things that I love to do, I love to develop product and innovate, and I'm a fixer. I like to solve problems. I like to think strategically. So what does the industry look like 5 years, 10 years out? What I hate to do, Tucker, is after I sold this to a client, I hated actually delivering it. I hated project management. I'm so bad at that.
Right.
And they encouraged me to find somebody who loves that and hates strategy. So that when we get together, I will stay out of my COO's way because she is hyper-focused and incredible at execution. And I live off in strategy and product, and I go out and try to find these new problems and develop new solutions. So
you're like the Wizard of Oz behind the cloak. Really, just pulling the levers.
I have built a business where I'm the least important person. And if anybody on my team, if anybody had to walk away and the business would still be successful, that's me. And that's what I try to do every day.
Yeah.
How do I bring in people who are better than me and put them into these roles, have them be successful, and then have a continual process of me trying to reinvent myself to grow the business, return that shareholder value, work on the things that I think are going to be incredibly important in the future.
Well, that's great advice that you got from your board and your mentors. If only every company could be run that way, right? We're not trying to put clones of ourselves underneath us. You want to give them the ball and run and do the things that maybe you don't want to do or shouldn't be doing.
And the secret to that, Kevin, was learning how to listen.
Right.
When you think about the best performers in the world, the best athletes, the best, all of these people, they're surrounded by a team of coaches. And even my son's playing Timbits hockey. What I want him to learn, the biggest skill I want him to learn is how to be coachable.
Yeah.
When someone's yelling at you, don't get your back up. They're trying to tell you something. Listen to what they're telling you. Yep. Wander through life and find people that are willing to tell you about your flaws and how you can be better. Listen for the patterns. Yeah, I keep hearing this over and over again. Yeah, fix that. Listen to want to be better and create a better organization, a better leadership team. We have a business coach, we have mentors, we have a board of advisors, all of these people that have diversity in thought, opinion, experience surrounding us, watching what we're doing and calling us out. Yeah. That is such a great opportunity to learn how to refine yourself, refine how you work together as a management team, refine your business, your offerings, your product. It's so incredibly important. And it comes back to learning how to be coachable.
Couldn't agree more. No, you're nailing it on the head. You're a sharp cat. I like it. But I wanted to touch on your COO. Yeah, a lot of praise for her. Who is your COO, and where'd you get her?
Yeah, Kara Haberstock is our COO. Now, Kara, much like us, her dad was a push on a drilling rig, and she grew up. She tells stories about going and having Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner
Out
on
at
the
the
rig.
rig. Yeah.
Totally. I was there. I can relate to that.
Amazing.
Now, Kara eventually took petroleum engineering like I did and worked for a bunch of producers. She worked for Barrick and then ended up at CNRL, and that was so instrumental because the process that we solved, she was responsible for that on the producer side.
Yeah.
She went and worked for an oil and gas software company and was one of the people that helped scale that up to eventually selling the business. So she had much more experience than I did in those facets of the industry, and it's so complementary. She understands things that I don't understand and allows us to have that diversity and background and understanding and opinion and thought process that really surrounds all the things that we do at Galatea.
Guys, yeah, you're a good team. You're like kid and play out there, just tapping the heels and cutting a rug.
I'd be nothing without her. She
Yeah.
does the things that I don't like to do, and I try to stay out of her way. It's so important. Anything in business, if you can find somebody that you don't have to lose any sleep over, that you trust when you walk into the office and say, I got good news and bad news. The good news is we just landed a client in Texas. The bad news is the market's 10 times the size, and so excited, let's figure it out. And I go, well, I'm glad you feel that way, because I'm going to go cry under my desk for a bit.
Let's get after it. Well, she's obviously got a tough background, and for people who don't understand, like what a push is the tool push is a rig manager on a drilling rig, and essentially the rig manager lives out at that drilling rig. He stays in that shack on the site, and he's responsible for all all the operations. And anybody who grew up in a rig setting or a drilling rig family, I did not, but certainly loved being around it for the last 20 years. That's a tough life, man. Those guys, like, they live out there. Those crews, they live out there. That's their life. And most of these hitches are 2 and 1 or 2 and 2 in some cases. What was the offshore? 30 days or something? Or
4 weeks on.
4 on and how many off?
4 off.
4 on, 4 off.
I'd go work in the office for 3 weeks and take my motorbike and cruise around South Texas, southern U.S. for a week.
Yeah.
It was great. But honestly, even to that, Kevin, my kids, when I work in the office on the weekend, I bring them with me. I give them jobs. I make them realize that work is something, if you love your job, that's one of the most important things in the entire world. And having that mindset of having your family be involved in your business, just like the push did.
Yeah.
That's so important. And I think that teaches kids that, you need to work hard to find a job that you love. Because if you find a job that you love, it's not work anymore.
That's right.
It's life. And my kids to this day love coming with me to the office.
Yeah.
I talk to them a lot about business and what we're going through at Galatea, and to have them immersed in that and have those conversations. I want to make sure they have that mindset that you got to work really hard to find a really cool job. And if you can do that, it's one of the best things you can do.
Yeah. We have those conversations at home too. And I mentioned to you earlier off air, we also were, it's a good opportunity to mention that we're actually fostering right now as well. We've got a 10-year-old girl living with us as well, along with our daughter, Brooklyn. But yeah, I like taking Brooklyn into the office and also talking about, because some of the things that they're learning in school about, oil bad and the environment and actually, talking about the benefits of where plastics come from and the benefits of, well, actually it's okay. We have to drill for water. We also have to pull these things out to get you your product, to get our fuel for the car, and try to, but I like talking about, the differences in, like the environmental side and where the industry is going, and it's okay to support our industry, but also the business side. She loves coming to the office and, well, I want to be famous and I want to have lots of money, and okay, well, this is what you have to do. You have to work. Yeah. And then so she comes to me and pretends to draw on the whiteboard and, well, what are you doing now? Where are you going? And who are you seeing? And
it's like my grandpa. He used to go out to the farm, on summer holidays, and I would fix the tractor with him, and he'd talk me through every part on the tractor and what we were doing. And
invaluable.
That was so valuable. And bringing the kids close and making sure if my daughter Marlo was sitting in this chair, she could probably give you as good of a pitch on Galatea as I did. She knows what I do every day. She knows what I go through. I share with her the good things and the bad things at the dinner table. Every night when we have dinner, we talk about what was the best part about your day, what was the hardest part about your day, and to give them exposed to that and know that, hey, some adversity happens and we get through it and we continue to show up and do the work. Super important.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. And I was just thinking, you were talking about work on the tractor, and I had, I'm a city boy. I grew up, but when I moved to Saskatchewan to chasing the hockey thing, but I got to go to Notre Dame. I feel like I've mentioned it every time, and I don't know why. It's just like therapy. But I got to be a farmhand for the first time out in Milestone, Saskatchewan, with this farmer, Bobby Keys, and so I would manage the rink and run the Zamboni and stuff. And then I'd go and be a farmhand out there. He taught me how to drive a tractor, taught me, seeding and harrowing and branding calves and birthing calves and just learning their work day, up at the crack of dawn, sun up. Everybody has a big breakfast. Okay, see you at dinner, which is, lunch. And then you come back, you have a big meal, and you're back out. Just the hard work and learning that the tradesmanship on that side, fixing things, fixing the falling off diskers off the back of your seating and things like that. That for a city boy at that time was so crucial to see that side. And now I also had the benefit of knowing I wasn't going to do it for life. I knew I didn't want to, but I loved it when I was in it, and it was such a cool experience. I love that stuff.
It sounded like you learned to be coachable. You learned to get up in the morning, and that's step one. You learned how to be employable. You learned that hard work, the result of hard work isn't immediate gratification, but if you do it long enough and you build a life where you're willing to do the hard work, you get horses in the race. And the more horses you have in the race, the more opportunities you get to be lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, no question. Well, so what do you see next? Where do you see Galatea going next? What's your short-term, long-term goals?
Well, I think the energy industry as a whole is going to go through a couple crazy years. When we look at energy demand driven on a macro scale by data centers and consumption, it's going to be a different world in 5 years. I think we have a part to play in that at Galatea, managing not just oil and gas waste, but think about critical minerals and infrastructure. Think about all the mining. That also has truckloads of waste that goes from here to there, commodities. I think we have a big place to play there, and I'm spending a lot of time wandering around those industries trying to learn more about the problem. I'm also learning how to scale a business. So I've been very lucky to be in a couple programs where they've teamed us up with mentors that have built billion-dollar businesses that have gone from 0 to 100, and having them on my side telling me about what's coming next so I can think about it now. I'm a first-time CEO. I'm trying to figure this out. When you have coaches around you giving you those insights, it can really help you prioritize what's most important. That conversation around ESG, the conversation about water security, the conversation, we're walking into one of the biggest droughts
that's right
ever in Alberta. It's going to be a tough year for us to figure it out. We're coaching all of our clients about trying to fill C rings and making sure that they've got that water security to run these capital projects. So I think we've got a big opportunity to play a role in that, coming from the digitalize, optimize, automate angle. That's really what we're working on. And then the US, when we think about the macro level in the US, they had in Kern County in Texas, they had 30 earthquakes in the last 90 days.
Holy Christ.
Part of that's attributed to injecting produced water back into the ground.
Right.
When we look at the cool companies in Calgary, we've got E3 Metals taking lithium out of produced water. We think there's going to be more optionality in the market, and we're trying to create the platform to give producers the transparency and the understanding that, hey, You don't have to go to an injection well. There's all of these other opportunities out there, and that's really market specific. Texas, if you've ever been to Texas, it's a desert. It's a lot of scrub land. All of that produced water that they pull out of the ground, if they can figure out how to make treatment economic, it's a great opportunity to use that for agriculture. So there's a bunch of really interesting angles and tailwinds to our business that are playing out. And I need to figure out, how do I steer our business into those tailwinds to be successful over the next sort of turn of the business.
Well, it's like you say, the next push is going to be on the mineral side, right? With the birth or the growth of the EV market. And I don't know. It's hard to say where this is going to end up. I don't know if I believe in this 2035 versus 2050. I mean, I don't know. All we know is what's been on the map for a long time is the declines or demand to drop in 2050-ish. So they say, but I don't know. I don't know what to believe, right?
If you correlate the luxury that we live in, think healthcare, think affordability. It's directly correlated to energy security and how much energy we have. We live in abundance sort of in North America, and that's afforded us a lot of luxuries. I can't imagine a world that doesn't want to live in these same luxuries that we have. Now, advancing on artificial intelligence, advancing on augmented reality, virtual reality, advancing on all of these sorts of things that will make life even more luxurious. I don't see the day that we don't produce or don't consume radically more units of energy. I love nuclear. I think that's a great opportunity, but it's insanely hard to build. In fact, nobody's with an SMR yet. So we have a lot of hurdles to get through, and as a society, we'll figure it out. Think about Calgary. That downtown Calgary, there is more engineering horsepower than anywhere else in the entire world. A big, massive global problem. We're going to figure it out, and I know a lot of oil companies are working really hard at that.
I think about it all the time, all the level of brain power and talent that we have downtown, from geos to engineering that are behind all this incredible innovation, and not unlike yourself. I mean, I put you in that category too, with some game-changing technology on the horizon. It's pretty exciting.
We need more people to come to the table. My ask is that young people who are in their formative high school, university years take a real hard look at energy, and you can make an incredible life working in energy, and that energy system is going to evolve through the process. And that's everything from bringing in nuclear, Ever Technologies in Calgary, doing amazing things with geothermal. A lot of that resource and knowledge comes from Calgary. Look at CCS, look at hydrogen. We are here. We will solve these problems. We're working insanely hard at it. It's a great opportunity for a young engineer or somebody who likes building things to come into the industry and have a wildly successful career doing something that I think is going to be the most important thing for humanity to evolve. Yeah,
that'll be the next gen right there. Well, and Ever Technologies. Do you know Brant Tracy? He jumped over there. He's
drilling wells for them over there now too.
Well, in Germany, right? But I think he did mention they were talking about Canada as well. But that's more on the geothermal side. But then you've got Deep Earth, right? And Cursa Marcia had some pretty groundbreaking work over there in Saskatchewan. And Saskatchewan alone is just sitting on a mountain of diamond and gold and uranium and lithium and helium and potash. And
think about Canada,
right?
Think about Canada and the opportunity that we have to provide critical resources to the world. And that's everything from oil to gas to uranium to cobalt to diamonds to all of these things that are important for our transition. If we can start to get the government's head wrapped around the fact that if we can produce the best resources in the entire world and supply the world through this growth stage, we can actually be one of the biggest contributors to that better future.
Yeah, no question.
First step is we need to get a place where this capital will come into the market and have confidence that we'll actually be able to execute these resource projects.
You need to be able to attract that global investment and stop handcuffing us at every turn, or attempting to handcuff us, essentially, right?
Raising money is the hardest thing I've ever done, and I think it will continue to be the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
If we can make it so that more capital is coming to Canada to look for these opportunities, that is what is going to put boots on the ground, and that's really what's going to get us out of our Canadian debt problem. That's going to provide all of this luxury. It's going to improve our healthcare, improve our schools, improve everything. As a society. We're sitting on this gold, like literal gold mine of resources. We just have to figure out how to get it out into the world. I've worked across North America. I've been on rigs from the Marcellus to the DJ to Texas, and I guarantee you nobody takes environmental, social, and governance more seriously than we do in Canada. We produce the best, cleanest, financially, socially, responsible resources in the entire world. You know, we need to stand on the table and tell the world that, hey, come here. We can get this done. We can move this into the market, and we can provide this to the rest of the world so they can live that luxury that we do.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I mean, we hear it all the time in our little bubble, but it's getting that word out across Canada that it's okay. This is where some of our, riches or some of our wealth comes from, whether you're deep in northern Ontario or on the East Coast, like to know that, energy and our natural resources is what's been driving, the bigger part of the GDP for the nation for a long time, and we can continue to do so. And
step one, Kevin, is having conversations like this. I appreciate the fact that you bring guests to this table to echo those, and I hope this reaches far and wide into our industry and out of our industry to change the sentiment and to get people more curious and doing the research into what we're actually doing as an industry out here to provide sustainability and prosperity for Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. I do. It's kind of two-pronged, this stuff. First of all, I just like shooting the shit. Let's just be honest. You do too. In the back of my mind, I hope to educate at the same time. And I may be somewhat biased, but I welcome anybody to sit on the other side of the table, environmental, whatever, green, liberal, NDP. I don't care. At the end of the day, I don't care. I want us to be able to all get along. How can we optimize, like Galatea would, optimize our resources in a positive and a responsible way to bring more wealth back to our nation and in our pockets, right? So less people and bring them out of poverty. And I think it's just the best way to do it. Sit here and yap.
Learning to have conversations, having the willingness to sit at this table, to be able to bend your perspective, to be able to leave the room with totally different information and a totally different opinion, I think is important. And it's something that we've lost with social media. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and I try to have intelligent conversation and go into every conversation, every interaction I have with a willingness to change my opinion. Yeah. And it changes all the time. And I think that's super important as we evolve in our understanding to know that, hey, the truth that we see through our eyes today may not be the truth that we see tomorrow, but it's our obligation to do the work into that understanding to really make sure that you understand what's happening in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I like having just productive conversations on there, even on differing opinions. I got into one with a gentleman on TikTok of all places. I have no business being on TikTok, but I put my clips on there to, get some traction. And one of the clips I put on, it was just one of the drilling ones. I was explaining what a drilling rig was, and it blew up. It got like 60,000 views or something silly, but just there was lots of chatter on it, which is what I liked. Yep. Lots of chatter, and there was a couple of gentlemen that were heavy, climate, I wasn't derogatory in any way. They were with me at first, and I just said, you are more than welcome here. You are welcome on this platform anytime, but I respectfully disagree. And then I would give, put my statements out there. And then in the end, the one gentleman actually kept coming back to me and saying, I appreciate where you're coming from and appreciate you not ripping my head off, even though he was ripping mine off first for no reason. But I'm just like, calm down. It's okay. We can disagree. Let's hammer it out. What are you hearing? Well, here's the facts I have. What facts are yours? Okay. We either agree or disagree and walk away. Rather than this new generation of keyboard warriors drives me bonkers.
One of the things I try to do on LinkedIn, Kevin, is when somebody has a differing opinion, I follow them.
Yeah. Well, that's
bring
good,
them into my circle so I can see more of their interaction and try to get a handle on their perspective, because they're seeing a world that's totally different than mine.
Yeah.
And I think pulling the people in instead of pushing them away and giving you the ability to understand their perspective and seeing the comments that they have, it helps me a lot. And I've changed my opinion on a few things through the knowledge and perspective that these people have changed. I think that's one of the smartest things you can do. I design software for a living, and looking at the algorithms that social media pumps out there to try to find the polarity is a tough thing to do. They're driving these conversations toward friction. And by welcoming it in, you get a more diverse understanding of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I love that. That's an excellent thing to do. I should start doing that as well.
Well, please find me on LinkedIn and follow along. It's a fun conversation.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's been a pleasure having you here, man. You're a good dude. You're a sharp guy, charming. Like I said before, just gorgeous, you know.
Keep going. Don't stop, please.
No, you're a good, excellent guy. And you're a good voice for the industry and the future of our industry. And I really appreciate you coming in today, man. And, I wish you nothing but success. I look forward to following your journey in Galatea Technologies.
Kevin, it's not easy, but somebody's got to do it. And I hope more people come behind us and have these important conversations. Thank you for all the work you do. And it's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, pal. We'll see you again. We'll see you out on the streets.
Let's go.